Does Dan Campbell know how to do anything besides bite kneecaps?
Straight to the top. Just put the stack on the clock. I am Rihanna's a shot. I'm going straight to the top.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? Mike here, Sports to the Real Shit Podcast, coming at you once again. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, share, tell a friend, and tell a friend, and tell a friend. Check out the website, sportsofthereal.tv. Appreciate you guys hanging out with me for a few minutes, talking some more football. It's week 2 of the college football season, opening week, kickoff weekend of the NFL season. So it's straight football. It's football season. All right. So let's get into it. I don't want to waste your time today. So let's get into it. Quick college football. There wasn't much to talk about college football this weekend. To be honest with you, most of the games were terrible. The only game that featured ranked teams was Michigan, Oklahoma, and that game really wasn't that good. It wasn't a well-played game at all for two teams that are, supposed to be top 15 teams. That game wasn't well-played at all. Oklahoma won, but somebody had to win that game, in my opinion. So that game is not really worth talking about, despite being the only game that was worth a damn over the weekend. And that leads me to really one of the only things I want to talk about in terms of college football this weekend, because the games were so terrible, is the concept of these, they call them these guarantee games for the top teams. So if you're new to college football, the bigger programs, they'll sprinkle a couple games throughout the season. So they have essentially 4 games on their schedule where they're allowed to schedule non-conference teams, right? So some schools will schedule, they'll have, one big time out of conference game. But for the rest of them, they'll schedule these guarantee games with these, non-FBS schools where they're guaranteed to win. And 99.9% of the time they win, and they win pretty bad. But this weekend was probably the worst I've seen, where multiple teams scored 70 points. And I know the other school, the non-FBS school, gets a lot of money that supports their athletic program out of these guarantee games for the Alabamas and, the Ohio States or whoever, Florida State, be East Texas A&M. Never heard of that school in my life. They scored 77 points on them. Alabama scored 70. These scores are outrageous. And I know these other schools get paid a ton of money. I get it, right? To support your athletic program. These, Alabama, Florida State, they schedule these games, these guarantee games. So it's essentially, right, when you look it up, they make it so that it's like a recovery game for their players. So they limit the risk of injury, which is so dumb. So essentially a bye week, right? So these guarantee games are essentially a bye week where instead of just taking the week off, these guys play these bummy ass teams for, they'll pay them, $700,000-800,000 or whatever it is, to beat up on them, limiting their risk of injury, while they still make the revenue that they wouldn't have made had they just taken a bye week, right? So they take a bye week, they're not going to make any money. So they said, forget that. We want to make some money, so we'll schedule these guarantee games, pay these cats a couple $100,000, let us beat up on them, our guys will rest. We still make revenue at the gate, so on and so forth. Cool. My only issue with that is, first of all, it's an ugly product. As a Florida State fan, I'm watching us play East Texas A&M, and I can't watch the whole game because it's bad. And the other team has no chance. And as much of a competitor that I like to think myself being, I would hate to be playing football. This ain't basketball. I would hate to play football knowing that I literally have no chance of doing anything positive against this other team. And the only reason I'm playing them is because they're going to cut our school a check for, $700,000-800,000 that basically pays for my scholarship, blah, blah, blah. But the problem with football is that you risk injury in doing so. So while the other team, Alabama and Florida State and Texas and whoever else, all these big time schools who are hanging 50, 60, 70 points on the opponent, while they get to, chill out and, go half ass and still, make the money, your school, your athletic department makes money, but you may get hurt because it's still football. So is it really worth it in this day and age? Like, is there not another way to set up the financial structure in college football so that these lower schools don't have to get their brains beat in by the Alabamas and Florida States of the world just for a paycheck? Is there not a better way to split that revenue? Because, come on. Like, if I'm risking injury knowing that there's no way I'm going to beat Alabama, I have no chance of getting the first down. Like, you watch that Florida State game against East Texas A&M. Like, that team had zero chance of doing anything positive. The fact that they scored 3 points is crazy. Florida State, who's, I guess, a better team than people thought they were going to be this year, 77 points is a lot. They did whatever they wanted. East Texas A&M had no chance. So I get the financial incentives for the other school, but as dangerous as football is, where you could pretty much be paralyzed on any given play, does it make sense for East Texas A&M and all these other smaller schools to come get their brains beat in just for a paycheck? I say no. I don't know, man. We have to find a better way to make, these smaller schools, to get these smaller schools, to get them paid, to get them a piece of the pie. I know somebody's going to say it's not fair, they don't deserve it, blah, 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 blah. Well, life's not fair, right? Looking at it from my perspective, I would prefer the bigger schools to, split that revenue somehow, all the revenue, pull all that revenue together and somehow share it with these smaller schools without having these kids risk injury, risk life and limb, essentially, just so their athletic departments can keep the lights on. That's just me. That's just the way I think. I know it's probably not a popular opinion. Most people ain't going to agree with that. Most people probably thinking, pull yourself up by your bootstraps, basically. You're not good enough, don't play. I don't know, right? The one example that I could remember, where it worked out for the smaller school was like the Appalachian State, Michigan win, like from several years ago. Like, that's like the only one I can remember. I'm sure there's others I'm not remembering right now. But it's like the only one I can remember where, the smaller school actually pulled off the upset. But other than that, it's usually a blowout. And to me, it's not fair to the student athletes who are still student athletes, right? Like, they're putting their body on the line essentially for the athletic department to run. And it's not just the football program, it's for non-revenue generating sports. So these football players get paid essentially nothing, right? They're on scholarship. But the football players, they lay their bodies out on the line. The school's going to get $600,000, $700,000, $800,000 from, Florida State, Alabama, whatever it is. But the football players don't see that money. It goes to the athletic department to fund the entire department, including non-revenue generating sports. So while, I don't know, the golf team or whoever, gets to live all lush and everything like that, they get to be funded by these kids who get their brains beat in for nothing. I don't know how fair that structure is. So the NCAA somehow has to find a way to make it so that these football players aren't getting their brains beat in for 4 quarters, 60 minutes by Florida State, risking injury just for a check to fund the entire department that they don't really get to see like that. Maybe I'm too caring. Maybe I'm too compassionate. But I don't think it should be like that, y'all. I really do not think it should be like that. There has to be a better way to restructure all of the revenue generating. I know the big bosses within the SCAA get their cut. The deans, the athletic departments at the athletic heads at the bigger schools, they get their cut, right? All of that comes into play. But there has to be a better way to make this thing work, because I don't know, man. If I'm a football player, I don't know if you could get me to agree to, knowing that I'm probably going to get hurt in a football game, to agree to get my brains beat in, no chance to win, and the money goes to support, golf team, swim team, or, some non-revenue generating sport. I don't know. But again, life's not fair, and that's what most people are probably going to say. Life's not fair. So anyway, that's my thought on week 2 of college football. I did want to go back to week 1. As I was watching the end of week 1 in college football, I was watching Notre Dame and UM. I was like, again, y'all, forgive me. I didn't keep up with the offseason, the transfer portal, and all that stuff. Carson Beck plays for the University of Miami, like the same Carson Beck that was at Georgia last year, and Carson Beck is throwing up the U. And so I wanted to make a point about the transfer portal, right? I've said it before. It's killing rivalries, and it's killing loyalties, I should say. As I watched Carson Beck throw up the U the year before, he was a Bulldog and being all immersed in what it means to be a Georgia Bulldog, and now he's throwing up the U. Is he really throwing up the U? Is he really feeling like he's a Miami Hurricane? Is Tommy Castellanos really a Seminole, even though he's balling out for us? Call me old school, man. And I know the structure wasn't right. The players, they have their say. The coaches could leave whenever they wanted, and the players were stuck in the program. I get it, right? So this is all making up for previous years of the system not benefiting the players, the college football players at all. I get it. And I'm not saying it's something that we have to change overnight. It just feels weird. Y'all know what I'm saying? It just feels weird to watch Carson Beck throw up the U when last year he was, balling out with Georgia a year before, like national champion. Like, come on, man. Come on, dog. Are you really a Hurricane? Or are you just a hired gun? And part of the appeal, in college sports, is that these guys, you're an alum, they're an alum. They went to your school. They go to your school. They bleed garnet and gold. Like, they're a Hurricane. But Carson Beck ain't no damn Hurricane. Tommy Castellanos was beating up on Florida State last year, previous years. Bro ain't no Seminole. I'm sorry. I'm old school like that. I prefer the guys who come in, freshmen, even if they have to wait in line, and then they play. That's how it's been. Again, I know times change. Get with the program, bro. I guess that's what y'all gonna say. Get with the program, OG, old head. I know that's what y'all gonna say. But I really would prefer a system where the players get their fair share of the money. But this transfer portal thing, I'm not feeling it, man. I'm just not. It's like, where are your loyalties? Do you really bleed? Like, you wanna see the guy, who really, who got recruited by Bobby Bowden, and he came to Florida State because he wanted to be at Florida State, and that's I miss that. And because college football took so long to fix the situation, it's all jacked up now. It's all messed up. Dudes are chasing the bag. They're transferring. Dudes are playing 6-7 years at 20 different schools. It's a mess. It's a whole mess. And for so long, people were saying, hey, pay the players, man. Just pay them, give them a cut, make it right by them. Never happened. And now the cat's out of the bag. How do you fix it? You can't. People saying, well, there's commercials out there. We got to fix college football. It's over. It's over. The dudes in charge messed up. They made all the money. It's in their bank accounts now. They're retired. And now the players are like, yeah, too late. And they're trying to make their money, unfortunately. So can't blame the players, but from an old head, it's just tough. It's just tough to watch. All right. All right. So that's my college football take for this week. Again, there weren't really any good games. It was whack. All right. Week 2 college football wasn't that good. So let's move on to the NFL kickoff weekend. Interesting storylines. I'm just going to comment on the games that I caught. All right. I watched. So let's start with the kickoff game, which was the Chiefs and it was the Eagles against Dallas kickoff game. Chiefs Chargers was the next game. So Philly's still good. Philly's still a great team. They didn't play their best game, actually. Philly's still good. They're still probably the team to beat in the NFC, all right? The Eagles are still the team to beat. They didn't play a great game. But the team is stacked, all right? Offensive line still legit. They still got, the boys, AJ, Devontae, they do their thing. Jalen keeps the ball moving. Saquon does what he does. They got her. Like, they got it like that. But they struggled to get to Dak. So maybe that's something to watch out for. Maybe it's just first game. I don't know. But not much to say about Philly. But for Dallas's defense looked real sus. Again, first game exaggeration, right? Dallas's defense didn't look good at all. They struggled. And their pass rush was non-existent. And Jerry Jones, listen, man, they were likely to think like rich folks are just like the smartest cats. Jerry Jones, like, he's proof that not all rich folks are like the smartest cats. Because a smarter person actually, as owner, would let go and let a real GM run the show in Dallas. So Micah Parsons is gone, and Dallas's defense looks like they're going to struggle all year. DeMarcus Lawrence ain't there no more. They're going to struggle this year to generate a pass rush. Teams are going to score on them. As a result, it's going to be up to the offense and Dak. And me and you both know Dak ain't trustworthy like that. Not consistently. So I don't know how Dallas ends up this year. I think they'll still be okay. But it's going to have to be some pretty high scoring games, in my opinion. So we'll see how that turned out. But the following night, the KC Chargers game, and I said in my season preview that I think Kansas City's still going to be the top dog in the AFC West. But I don't know. And at some point, the lack of weapons catches up to you, man. I know. Listen, I know Pat is still great. I know Andy Reid still draws them up. Cool. But at some point, you got to have the horses, man. And you're watching Kansas City, and you're like, Travis Kelce's old as hell. He's not the same guy. And you're like, who on their team gets open? Like, yes, Andy Reid's going to scheme him up. Pat's going to do what he does. But you're watching KC and you're like, who's legit gets open? Xavier Worthy got hurt, shoulder. He's going to be out for a while. Cool. But who's going to be the guy to step up for KC? At some point, it catches up to everybody. All right? It's tough when you're Pat Mahomes and, the world is on your shoulders and you're Andy Reid and people are expecting you to keep going back to the championship game, back to the Super Bowl. And it's tough to keep doing that without the horses. And I know they invested a lot in Patrick. They're like, yo, you're our guy. You have to keep taking us back to the promised land. But the man ain't God. And at some point, he needs help. Okay? Again, my preseason prediction is they're still top dog, the Kansas City Chiefs. But after watching that Chargers game, I'm like, they can be beat. Of course, when the playoff comes, things happen. Spagnuolo, things happen. Again, it might be a week one overreaction, but after week one, I can say I'm doubting myself because Kansas City didn't look like they had anybody on offense to get open like that. And the Chargers actually look decent. Like, Justin actually showed some emotion. Herbert, who's usually reserved and, he showed some emotion. And I think he's growing up. And I think Harbaugh has made it so that he is reeled them in. He is not just throwing the ball 50 times a game, but game one, he had some passes. He threw the ball more than most expected him to. And he played well, Justin. And he got the game-clinching first down. So I like what I saw out of the Chargers. The Raiders look decent against the Patriots, but it's the Patriots. They're playing a young quarterback. They're still learning, about that. Right? But the Raiders, Geno did his thing. Can't knock him. Again, I'm still going to ride with KC, but I'm on the fence as far as if they're the best team in the AFC West. At some point, your luck runs out. And they're definitely not the best team in the AFC right now. Like, the best team in the AFC is, again, somebody's going to say, when it comes to the playoffs, the Chiefs always beat the Bills. The Chiefs always beat the Ravens. The Chiefs fans ain't worried about it right now after week one. And they're right to say that. Chiefs fans are right to say that they don't care about the damn Bills and they don't care how the Ravens look right now. But you know what? The damn Bills and the damn Ravens look really, really good right now. Both of them. And the Ravens probably should have lost that game. And they probably won't lose another game like that. But they both look really good. Josh is still doing Josh things. It was two monsters going at it. And it went down to the end. And somehow Buffalo came back. I'm not even sure, how the Ravens let that happen. So in my opinion, I think Buffalo and Baltimore are the two best teams in the AFC. And so here's what I want to address from that game. Some people are trying to blame John Harbaugh for, the loss. And they're saying, John Harbaugh is not the right coach for Lamar. Listen, I think John Harbaugh is a hell of a coach. I know he probably would have been fired, in 2018 when until Lamar took over. That's probably true. But he did win a Super Bowl before that. And I think he's a heck of a coach. His teams are always tough, physical. Like, you're never going to call John Harbaugh's teams soft, which we'll get to in a minute. All right? About other teams. His teams are always there. They're always, they're always tough, prepared for the most part. Like, he's a solid coach. I think he's a top-tier coach. But like I said in my season preview, this season ain't about nobody else but Lamar Jackson. Don't try, media, don't try to switch this thing and put it on Harbaugh. Last night's game, okay, maybe it's on coaching, whatever you want to say, but don't try to put this season on Harbaugh saying, oh, he should be fired, he's not the right coach to take him over the hump. We've watched the playoffs enough to know that Lamar doesn't do Lamar things in the playoffs. The Lamar we saw last night who balled out against the Buffalo Bills is not the same Lamar we see in the playoffs. So until that Lamar from week one shows up in the playoffs, don't tell me nothing about no John Harbaugh, bro. I don't want to hear it. He may have his deficiencies, cool. But this season, for Baltimore, it's all about Lamar Jackson. Your team's going to get to the playoffs. Derrick Henry was doing Derrick Henry things again. Zay Flowers did his thing, getting open. Like, you have the squad. You're not going to play Buffalo every week with Josh Allen, who can do whatever he wants with the football and who's always a threat to win a game. Like, Baltimore's going to have a great record again. 3-4 losses. Probably get home field advantage in the playoffs. And when they get there, all I want to see is, can Lamar play like the Lamar we saw week 1 against the Bills? Or will he be playoff Lamar, which is a good Lamar? So I don't want to hear nothing about John Harbaugh. He may not be the greatest coach. He's not Bill Belichick. He's not Andy Reid. But damn it, he's a pretty solid coach. Don't try to pin the lack of Super Bowl appearances on John Harbaugh. Don't do that. Don't try to do that. One game, you're not gonna blame John Harbaugh. This is Lamar Jackson's year to prove that he can actually do something when he gets to the playoffs. Or else, we're just back to square one again with him. All right? Don't try to blame John Harbaugh. Green Bay, Detroit. So I talked about Dallas letting Michael Parsons go. Is Detroit? Listen, I know I said the Eagles are the best team in the league, but is Green Bay the second best? From what I saw, I ain't gonna lie to y'all. From what I saw, if somebody said Green Bay was the best team in the NFC, I'd be like, you know what? You might have a point. Now, we still got to see what Jordan Love can do consistently over 17 games. But the defense looked right. The defense looked great. Michael Parsons, despite the Lions' offensive line being one of the best in the league, they still got pressure on Jared Goff. I guess Michael Parsons is worth that money. And I said it in my preview episode. Maybe Michael Parsons is this year's version, this generation's version of Reggie White. Reggie White gets traded to the Packers, they win the Super Bowl. I don't know. I don't know if Jordan Love is good enough, but they got the talent on offense to do whatever they want to do, and their defense looks legit scary. Like, they shut down Detroit, who was killing everybody last year. So if somebody came and said, hey, Green Bay's the best team in the NFC, I'm not mad at them. But they're definitely top 2. It's Philly and Green Bay right now as the best teams in the NFC, in my opinion. But the other side of the coin of that game was Detroit. And I have to ask this question. Is Dan Campbell a good coach? I know it's heresy after the guy's been so successful the last couple of years to say, I know it ain't right. But was Dan Campbell carried by his assistants? By the way, Aaron Glenn got the Jets looking good, even though they took the L week 1 against Aaron Rodgers. But the Jets looked really good. Their offense wasn't too bad with Justin Fields. Like, they had a chance to beat the Pittsburgh Steelers. So Aaron Glenn did a great job. And Ben Johnson's doing his thing with the Bears. We'll see how it turns out for him. But does Dan Campbell know how to do anything besides bite kneecaps? Sorry, I had to say it. Because his assistants left, offensive defensive coordinator left, and you're wondering, what is Dan Campbell known for? He's a great motivator. Like, if you play for him, you want to run through a brick wall for Dan Campbell, no doubt. And his teams are never going to be soft, no doubt. I've already established that. But what is Dan Campbell without his great assistants? That's the question that needs to be answered. See, like, the greatest coaches, right? Belichick, you knew his defense was going to be on point. Like, he'll draw up a defense. Like, He'll shut your guys down. He'll win Super Bowls just playing defense. We know Andy Reid will draw up game-winning plays, Super Bowl-winning plays. The upper echelon coaches are great at something schematically. They can scheme something. I don't know if Dan Campbell can schematically, as a head coach, win you a game. So now that his assistants are gone, he's still a great motivator, but can he schematically prep his team to win games now? I don't know if it's the new offensive and defensive coordinators. I don't know if they're as great as the previous ones. That remains to be seen. But Dan Campbell's, he's going to have to show something. He's going to have to prove something. Are you a great coach or just a great motivator? Were you carried by your assistants in previous years? We'll wait. That's, to be seen, to be determined. I don't know. I like the guy. I really do. But at some point, you gotta carry your own water. So we'll have to wait to see what Detroit can do without their two assistants from last year or previous year. All right. And then what I really didn't want to talk about, but I have to, just being, honest with the situation, is my Dolphins. The Miami Dolphins got blown out by the Colts. And they made Indianapolis Colts look like a good team. The Dolphins made Daniel Jones look like he actually belongs as a starting quarterback in the NFL. Yeah, that Daniel Jones. How, Sway? Tua looked awful. Listen. I talked about Mike McDaniel. Maybe this is his last year in my preview episode. Cool. Here's the problem with NFL teams. The Giants did this with Daniel Jones. Other teams continue to do this. Because the NFL is so quarterback driven, teams feel like they have to pay any quarterback who resembles like they got talent. If you look like you can throw a forward pass, the team's going to feel like they got to pay you $200 million. So Tua gets paid $200 million because the Dolphins thought he was a franchise quarterback. And to me, a franchise quarterback is, you don't have to win the Super Bowl yourself. Like, there's no such thing as a quarterback who's going to win the Super Bowl alone. I've said that. I've dispelled that myth. All right? But the guy who deserves $200 million is the guys like Josh Allen, the guys like Pat, the guys like Lamar, who have proven to be able to win, at least in the regular season, when everything around them is subpar. When guys are hurt, the weapons aren't there, the defense ain't playing up to par, whatever it is, these guys find a way to win football games. Those are the guys you pay $200 million to. You don't pay $200 million to Tua because he looks great throwing the ball to wide open Cheetah and Jalen Waddle. So the Dolphins, my team, are now stuck with Tua's contract, who look awful against the Colts, who nobody expects to be a great team, who has Daniel Jones starting at quarterback. So not only is the defense not going to be any good, because Daniel Jones is like the second coming of, Steve freaking Young. I don't know. The defense ain't going to be that good, but the offense ain't going to be that good probably because, one, the offensive line ain't that great, and two, Tua doesn't function well in imperfect situations. So I tried to warn the Dolphins, but Tua is a cautionary tale, just like Daniel Jones is a cautionary tale for, when he was with the Giants and he got paid. It happens over and over and over where teams feel like they have to pay these quarterbacks who have any kind of semblance of having some kind of talent. Teams feel like they have to overpay them and not pay guys who deserve it. So Dallas is going to pay Dak a whole bunch of money, and they're not going to pay Micah. The Giants are going to pay Daniel Jones, and they're going to have second thoughts about paying Saquon. And on and on and on and on. Overpaying quarterbacks hardly ever works. I get it. Not everyone is Patrick Mahomes, but there has to be a tier of quarterbacks who can get paid without getting overpaid because they just happen to look good. The situation around them look great and they look good, but they're really not that great. Tua is exhibit A of the overpaid quarterback, the overpaid mid quarterback getting paid, and when his teammate great around him, he looks real sus. So this is going to be a long season for the Dolphins. I already predicted it that Tua is probably going to get hurt because our offensive line is not that good. Even if he doesn't get hurt, I think Tua struggles this year. And I really think it's Mike McDaniel's last year because the Dolphins did not look good against the Colts, and the Colts are not a good team. Damn. So my NFL season as a Dolphins fan is probably over. There's always next year, I guess. There's always next year. Last couple of things I found interesting while watching Red Zone. One is, I think the Bryce Young experience is over. Bryce Young experience is over. He doesn't look any better than he did as a rookie. I know Bryce Young doesn't have the necessary weapons. I understand. But he still looks small. He looks so small out there still. He looks like a high schooler trying to play in the NFL with grown men. Again, still no weapons. I get it. And I wanted him to succeed. Nice kid. I just don't know if it's going to work. So I think the Bryce Young experience is over in the NFL. Maybe he spends his career as a backup. I don't know. And last thing, I think the Giants are ready to move on from Russell Wilson. I said it at the beginning of the year. I don't know why they picked him up. I think that's the end of the road for Russ. He didn't look great week one. I don't think he didn't look great last year. I don't think he's going to look great the rest of the year. He's just going to play it out. Giants fans, welcome to the offseason. Thank you for joining us. So those are the games I caught, over the weekend, first week. More football to come. College football, hopefully things get better week 3, better games. Start to get into the conference schedules. NFL moves into week 2. People start to get acclimated. Offense, defenses start to settle in and things like that. So before the injuries start killing the teams and the matchups start to be mismatched. So yeah. So that's what I have for you guys this episode. Thanks for hanging out for a few minutes. Leave a comment. Let me know what you think. Like, share with your friends as always and family. Again, check out the website. But let's get after it. All right. You guys continue to do your thing. I'm going to continue to do mine. I'm going to catch you guys next time. Mike, sports to the real shit. You guys be good. Peace. I'm going straight to the top. Just put the sec on the clock. I am Rihanna's a shot. I'm going straight to the top.